You know, I sat down to write, and I really felt this need to write something that I felt really good about making into a play. So I sat down and thought something simple location, something I felt like I could handle as a producer, produce myself. And I came up with the idea of a hotel room because I thought it's pretty universal, and there are many stories, and the stories are endless that happen there. So it gave me room in that way with a confined space. When I first wrote Room 314, and I was very focused on doing it as a play, I didn't think at all about this could be a movie someday. Not at all. I actually had there was part of my mind that was thinking, oh, this could be a series someday. And I still think that, and I hope that that happens someday in the future. Because simplistic, you know, one room, one location, simple to do. So many stories could happen. So I didn't think about making it into a movie. And even after I did the play twice, and I loved it, the experience was incredible, doing the theater, doing the play version. It wasn't until I just felt the need to get my name out there as a writer and a director that I thought, well, I could shoot a short film. And I thought, what should I shoot? And I figured I could just use one of the stories from Room 314. I picked Nick and Stacy because I felt like it had a lot of elements that would be great for a short film. The length of it, there's a good amount of humor, there was something poignant. I think there was something universal in there about it, about relationships and men and women. And it was very manageable. And so it wasn't until after I was done shooting that I really thought to myself, you know what, it was fun. It was fairly simple in my opinion, and I thought, well, you know, if I just shoot the other stories for Room 314, I could have a feature film. There is a theme there, there's a through line. However hidden it may be, there's a through line story-wise about relationships. And I thought this could be easy. It'd be better than most of the stuff I see out there. So I thought, and it would be a good experience for me as a writer and director to experience. Yeah, not too much was going through my mind, but I remember sitting down to write. It was in August, and I'm gonna say 2001 at this point. I'm pretty sure it was August 2001, and I sat down to write. And I was dating this girl at the time. I think we were getting ready to move in together, and she went on a trip to Bali for 3 weeks. And I was going to ask her to marry me when she got back. I knew I was going to do that. I had it planned. I'd already bought the ring. And so that was what was going on in my life. Now, I didn't think of it at the time, but now looking back, I do believe that a lot of my feelings, confusion, fear, joy, uncertainties about marriage is what was inside of all the stories, or came through with all the stories. Unconsciously, I didn't think about it. I wasn't thinking like, oh, I want to write about my fears about marriage. That's just what was going on for me, and it came through. Because all the stories are about relationships, the questions that one might have when they're thinking about why am I with this person, and what does it mean when I say I'm with this person, or you know, how do I behave then? So I wrote for 3 weeks, and each story came out in one sitting. I'd sit down, I wrote, and that was it. And I would take like 3, 4 days, 5 days to break, and then I'd write another story. And I didn't have any idea of what I was writing about at all. It just came out. The stories just came out. You know, I studied with a really great teacher, this guy named Tom Noonan, who's a great writer and filmmaker and an actor. And he was always encouraging his students to write from where they were, how they were feeling right then, and to write about what you don't know. You know, there's a big, I guess, saying people say about writers, you write about what you know. And he'd always say, why write about what you know? Write about what you don't know. And that's what I feel like I ultimately did. And the only way to do that is by not knowing what you're going to write. Just start writing from an emotional place. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I learned quite a bit about myself. The first story I wrote was Harry and Gretchen, and that was intense. I mean, it's an intense story, and I was feeling a lot of things. I got really in touch with my, my deep sadness and loneliness. And that's where Harry started, And I entered the room. I was Harry. I entered the room. I felt really low, and that, I believe in my own, psychoanalysis of myself. Gretchen was my other side, my other half. That came in to basically help me through that time, which I chose to allow myself to experience, that loneliness. And that what happens in the Harry and Gretchen story, on what you see in the movie, is two characters, a husband and a wife, dealing with what their story is. What really was happening is I was dealing with my deep sadness, and there's another part of me that has joy and happiness and like peacefulness, which I feel like Gretchen has more of that than Harry does, and in some ways it's a struggle. It's a wrestling match, and a real conflict between the two of, like, who's in charge and who's the boss of who and who's going to listen to who. I tell you, the most important line to me is biggest moment in my writing of that story is when Harry, finally says to her, she says, Gretchen says, I'm listening to you, and Harry says, no, you're not. You're not listening to me. You never listen to me. And he goes on from there. It was intense because I really believe that my other side then actually heard me, because it's, not to get too crazy analytical, but I think everybody should experience that, having their two sides really have it out, really have it out, because we all have a couple voices in our head, the true self, and then the fearful self, and the non-fearful self, and that's basically what's going on in that scene, for sure. But to speak specifically about, for me, my experience and why I think the roles came out the way they did as far as men and women in Room 314, I learned something about myself when I was in therapy with this great therapist. At one point, I explained to him my feelings about life and, how I felt about women, and how I always wanted a hug, and I just wanted to be hugged all the time and to never be let go, like just forever, just be held, period. And, I realized even as I was saying it, I was like, I know that's impossible because, you have to go to the bathroom, you have to go get food, you have to go to work. But it didn't matter. There was a part of me that always wants to be held. So he went on to explain that it sounded like the fact that there's a symbiotic process that happens early in a child's development. Some therapists even believe it's before a child's born, that the baby feels connected to its mother. And if that process isn't completely formed or completed, so to speak, that child will always feel a little disconnected and always feel the need to get back to that comfortable place or connected place. And it really spoke to me. I was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of how I feel, like I said, I just could crawl up into a woman's arms and just stay there forever, which was scary for a lot of women. And I apologize. But what I think how that translated into the work is that all my life I've always felt women had that power because they had the thing I needed. So it's like I've always felt like women have the power over me. Like I need something from them and they wouldn't give it to me. So that's why I think that makes a lot of sense of why I feel like in that situation, Room 314, I was always feeling that way, which is, for me, that's what is great about art, is that it gives you a chance to express that and then learn something about yourself. And then hopefully, if I make another movie, which I have, I've grown as an artist, or as a human being, as an artist, and that the relationships are a little bit different, which I think they are in my second film, One Night. Like, it's not the same. It's not just men trying to, to get connected to a woman. There's women trying to, and there's a lot of things going on, actually. And I feel like I can see how I've grown as an artist, as a human being, and as an artist, to be able to express different types of relationships.